Hello and welcome to this CDP Studio tutorial. In this tutorial I will show you how to control 3 LEDs by using software pulse width modulation on the Raspberry Pi. I will also show you how to control these LEDs using sliders in a graphical user interface. As can be seen from the diagram, I have physically hooked up the red LED to BCM17, the blue LED to BCM27 and the white LED to BCM22. The ground on the Raspberry Pi is connected to the ground on the breadboard. Each LED has a small resistor to limit the current flowing through it. We start by creating a new system called PWM Demo. The default application is called PWM Demo App. When the project has been created, we select the application and add a GPIO server from the resources. We then add 3 GPIO pins to control the LEDs and rename them to red pin, blue pin, and white pin. We then add 3 signals to control the PWM inputs. Rename the signals to red input, blue input, and white input. All 3 signals should have the input attribute set. We now want to add the 3 PWMs to control the GPIO pins. The resource search field can be used to search for resources. By double-clicking the PWM resource 3 times, we get 3 PWM operators. We then rename the PWMs to red PWM, blue PWM, and white PWM. By dragging and dropping a line from the red input onto the red PWM in property, a connection is made that tells the system to propagate data from red input to the in property. This information is stored in the application configuration. We can now connect the other PWMs. The PWM outputs must be connected to their respective GPIO pins. As we remember from the breadboard diagram, red is connected to BCM17, blue is connected to BCM27, and white is connected to BCM22. We set the frequency for the GPIO server to 2000 Hz. Then we configure each PWM to have an input range between 0 and 1 and set the resolution to 50 steps. The more steps you need, the higher the GPIO server frequency must be. We can now quickly test the application to see that everything is hooked up correctly. Make sure that the Raspberry Pi is powered on and that SSH is enabled and that it is connected to the same network as your computer. In CDP Studio, select the Deploy Configuration tab. From the Devices table, find the Raspberry Pi and pair it if it's not already paired. If this is the first time you set up the device, the default username for Raspbian is Pi and the password is Raspberry. Rename the device to Raspberry Pi. From the Applications table, select the Raspberry Pi device from the pull-down list and select the toolkit to Raspbian ARMv6 32-bit. This will make the application run on that target using the Raspbian toolkit. We can now run and connect to the system and test that the PWMs work correctly. When we choose Run and Connect, CDP Studio will start running all the applications on the targets they have been assigned to. Data from the connected applications are shown in the different views in CDP Studio. We quickly test that the PWM is working by setting the red input to 1, then 0.5 and finally to 0, and observe the effects on the red LED. We test the blue LED and the white LED in the same manner. When we are satisfied with the results, we stop the system. We will now add a graphical user interface to control the LEDs. This is done by adding a GUI application to the system. We select Application Type GUI and name it GUI App. Select the GUI app, then click on Design mode. Here we can add widgets to control the LEDs. First we add a slider to control the red LED. We name it Red Slider. In the Properties search box, we type val to find everything that contains the phrase val. We then make sure min value is 0 and max value is 1. Next, we want the slider to have number indicators, so we search for num. Set numpos to numbers show. Search for tick and set tickpos to ticks above. Finally, we want the slider to be horizontal, so we search for orientation and set that to horizontal. We want our sliders to be grouped, so we add a group box and edit its text to say red LED. We then rename the group box to red LED in the object tree. Drag and drop the slider into the red LED group box and click the vertical layout to make it follow the layout of the group box. Copy the red LED group box, select the main window and then paste it. Position it under the red LED group box and rename it to blue LED. In the object tree, rename the selected group box to blue LED and rename the slider below it to blue slider. Copy and paste the blue LED group box and rename it to white LED. Then rename the objects in the object tree. I forgot one thing, and that is to make the slider send changes whenever you move it, instead of the default, which is to send on slider release. We can make this change to all the sliders at once. Select the red slider object, then hold the Control key and select the blue slider and then the white slider. Now find the property called CDP Send and change that to On Slider Moved. This change is applied to all the selected sliders. The final thing to do is to connect the sliders to the control system. Select the red slider and click into the CDP routing value field. Here we specify the object that should receive the red slider values. pwmdemoapp.gpioserver.redInput. We connect the blue slider in the same way, but it should be connected to pwmdemoapp.gpioserver.blueinput. Finally, connect white slider by specifying pwmdemoapp.gpioserver.whiteinput in the CDP routing property for the white slider. As you type the routing names, suggestions are provided based on your application structure. Click on the background, then select Layout vertically. We now have a clean, scalable GUI. Save the GUI and go to Configure mode. Right-click the system and select Run and Connect. The control application for the LEDs will now run on the Raspberry Pi, while the GUI application will run on your computer. You can now control the lights by dragging the sliders. That was all for this CDP Studio tutorial.